What's up, everybody? It's Camera Work Podcast number 25. I am John Ricard, and I am joined by two people today. First is our co-host, Ray Tamarra.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for checking us out, and definitely we got a great guest for you today, and definitely do your work, because that's what we're going to be talking about, working.
Right, and the guest today is JJ. Now, she only goes by JJ, is that correct?
JJ, just two J's with a capital.
Right. Now, although this is supposed to be a photography podcast, you're not actually a photographer, correct?
No,
Right.
by any means. Well,
Now,
selfies, does that count?
No, that
Okay.
does not count. No, we're not going to give any props to the Instagrammers
Okay.
today. No, but you are known as the Jacob of makeup.
Yes.
Which is funny because it rhymes.
Exactly.
And what's even funnier is the audience for this podcast. 80% of them don't know who Jacob is.
Okay.
So what does that mean when they say Jacob? Who is that, and what does that signify if you were the Jacob of makeup?
Okay, well, how that all started was back in the 90s, or I should say early 2000s. Jacob is the famous jeweler, and
Right.
it was kind of like a joke at Hot 97 by Funk Flex. They would call me, like, everyone would see me at video shoots all the time doing makeup for all the hip hop artists, and they would start to say, well, here's JJ, you know, if you would see Jacob at a video shoot, you were going to see me at a video
Right.
shoot too. So they'd started to rhyme it with JJ, the Jacob of makeup. So that's how that all started.
Right, it's funny,
so.
it rhymes, but like
Yeah.
you said, like in hip hop, if you say Jacob, everybody knows who that was. That was the first successful jeweler that everybody was shouting out on the records and going to visit and all of that.
Yes.
He was the only jeweler in essence. So when they're calling you the Jacob of makeup, that's almost like going, this is the only makeup artist that exists almost. Like it's like the Michael Jordan of makeup.
I was honored for that name.
Right.
It was pretty cool.
Right, that's what they were calling you.
Yeah,
So-
to have Angie Martinez shout me out and Flex to say that on the radio station was pretty cool.
Right.
It was
Yeah. So
great.
that's really cool. And I've known you well over 10 years. I don't remember the first time I met you or like when you kind of got on my radar, but I've known you forever, right? Ray, you've met JJ before.
Yes, I've
Definitely.
worked with her. I've worked at shoots with her, and she's always been very, very nice.
Thank you.
Which is cool, right? So before we get
too,
to
right?
before we get kind of in deep with who you are, we're
Okay.
going to just talk about what, say, the last week or two has been like for all of us. Just anything interesting that happened in the last 10 days or so, okay? I'll start.
Okay.
So today I just finished a workshop practice. I'm actually doing a workshop on photography at Unique Photo in New Jersey on January 11th, I think it is, a Saturday. It's like a 3-hour presentation. I'm teaching studio lighting. So I wanted to do some practice sessions here in the studio. We just finished one. It went really well.
Awesome.
And I did one last week, and Ray assisted me, which is very nice of him. And the funny thing is after I finished the first one, I mean, Ray just shredded me. Like, I walk away going, okay, I guess it was decent. Ray is just like, you can't do this. This is wrong. And I mean, he called me out on everything. Because like my camera battery died halfway through the workshop.
Oh my
He's
God.
just like, your camera battery can't die. You're supposed to have the camera battery charged and the pocket wizard's charged, you know. But I do thank Ray, because it's good to have people around you that can be honest with you and tell you what you're doing
Yes.
wrong. And you know, he did it. And really, Ray, I thank you for that.
Yeah, you don't
were
want
like,
people that are around you that don't, you know, voice their opinions. That's how we all learn and we all grow, right?
Right,
So-
and it's good, and I think you have to open the door for that. Like, I give Ray credit for being honest enough to say, like, dude, that presentation was not right, you were not prepared. But I also give myself credit for making that door open, that he knows when he comes at me that way, I'm not going to go, no. I'm going to go, you know, you're right.
Yeah.
So this was my second practice session, and it was, tell me if I'm right or wrong, it was markedly better than the first.
Yeah, no.
Practice makes
markedly-
perfect.
Yeah, practice makes perfect.
Right.
Perfect. What we were talking about is the work, and that's what you need. You need to do the work so that you can understand where are your holes and how to
Right.
fill them up.
Right, so I incorporated a lot of your feedback. I incorporated, so I thank you for that. But I had a good time. We did this workshop for like 2 hours. It was a
Oh,
blast,
awesome.
right? But Ray, anything? What have you been working on the last week or two since the last time we were here?
Everything is starting to slow down because of the holidays. What I did do was I got a chance to shoot Sir Ian McKellen. He was in Lord of the Rings.
Wow, that's
Bradley
awesome.
Cooper. These are stuff that are celebrity arrivals in and out. So it's not like a personal photo shoot, but it's as best as I can do for right now, and that's what those are the biggest names that I've shot this week.
Right.
Wow.
Yourself?
That's cool. So what have you been up to, JJ?
Well, I think it's great that we're all, you know, all been in this industry for many years, and I think it's all great that we can still grow, you know, and learn from each other. I
Right.
wanted to say that. Also, well, for me, it was With you.
That's good.
I would have to say with John,
Right.
I had an awesome time at our pinup girl shoot with Hadia.
Right. We shot someone named Hadia Barbell.
Hadia is amazing.
Right. She makes
Award-winning
She calls them crowns.
hairstylist.
I would call it a wig, but I guess there's some female difference.
Crown. She
that-
calls them a crown.
Yeah, she calls it a crown. To me, it's a wig, but there's some.
Well, I kept slipping up
Female
and saying
thing.
wig, and I have to show Hadia respect, and I have to
Right.
learn to say
A crown,
it's a
right.
crown.
I don't know what the
And you know,
difference
once you
is.
put it on, I didn't know. I've never really worn wigs or anything.
Right.
Maybe extensions here and there. But I have to say, once I put those, you saw me kind of
Yeah,
playing around with
yeah.
them.
You should have seen
I
her.
was-
She was like Instagramming pictures.
Oh
She's
my
putting on the
God.
blonde. She has black hair if you're listening to us on iTunes.
This is my natural black.
So
hair.
yeah,
I
she's
had blonde,
blonde wigs, and
blue.
curly wigs, and on and on and on. It was ridiculous.
It was
But-
awesome.
But we shot her. She wanted like a pinup shoot, and you came out and did the makeup. I did the photography, and it was great. I mean, she was so comfortable that that made it easy.
And you know what? I have to say, I went home. I didn't get home till like 12. I think it was
Yeah,
12.
it was a long day.
I didn't go to bed till like 3 in the morning. I was sitting there looking at every picture we took, and
Oh,
it
that's
was
so
just a
cool.
great feeling. And it was just like, I haven't felt that way for, it was fun. I had
Right,
a good
for a
time.
minute. Well, that's good
Yeah, and then
then.
I would have to say with Ashanti too, the Christmas tree lighting, which I
Oh,
worked
at
with her
Rockefeller
for.
Center?
Oh, it was awesome. Ashanti's awesome, and I've been
Right.
with her for over 12 years. So I had a good time. I always have a good time with the Douglas
Right.
family. So that
That's
was awesome.
very cool.
Yeah.
Right. But let's get to you sort of specifically for a moment, okay?
Okay.
So you have been successful in your career.
Yes.
So the first question we would really want to know is, how did you become successful at it? Because when you're talking about New York, not only are there a million makeup artists, but there's a million good makeup artists. And it's something I try to
Yes.
stress to people a lot about in New York, is that it's not just that there's a lot of photographers, no, there's a lot of good photographers. It's not like everybody sucks.
Okay.
They're your competition. You're looking at their work, at least I am, like, damn, this dude's good. So how did you become successful at makeup?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, I think it's something that you're kind of born with, because when I was a little kid, I remember kind of fixing people up all the time and trying to do their hair, their makeup to make them feel good about themselves. And I think for me, just learning makeup I was a trainer at MAC for many, many, many years in the 90s. And I got my big break. First of all, I want to say something. Don't give up on your dreams, because I was a teenage mother. Very young.
Really?
I'm not condoning this. I was on welfare, the whole bit, 9 yards.
Right.
And I just pretty much never knew what direction I was going to go into. So I went to cosmetology school, and I went to the whole makeup school thing, and I got a job, luckily, at MAC when they first came out.
Right.
And back then you had to be a makeup artist, and I got into the whole MAC
What does that
thing.
mean? You mean to get a job at MAC?
To get a job at MAC, when it
Okay.
first opened, you had to have a book, you had to have a portfolio, which I did, but wasn't anyone famous. I worked
Right.
a lot with drag queens. I learned a lot from them, and the gay parades and everything that I had,
Right.
learned from everyone, and just like working on brown skin. That was my thing. That was my specialty. Not that I can't do Caucasian or any type
Right.
of other makeup. I hate when people say that, because they're like, prototype me. I can
Right.
do any kind of makeup.
Right.
But this is where my career took off.
But
with
that was
hip-hop,
that was a
obviously.
niche that you sort of carved out, that you
Yes.
chose to carve out for yourself. And I'm
Exactly.
guessing, tell me if I'm right or wrong, you probably started doing this at a time when it wasn't necessarily lucrative. It wasn't like the hip hop artists were dominating the charts,
Yeah.
and you were like, well, I'm going to go get that
I-
market. It probably was not a huge market, but for whatever reason, you were drawn to that, and you said, this is
Exactly.
what I want to specialize in. And I guess as the groups got bigger, that kind of helped you a bit, as
Yeah.
the artists were able to get more mainstream.
And it's strange because I don't know if you've ever read The Secret, the book.
Yes.
It's like
yes.
what you put out there is so true, because I remember working in the meat department. My mother had got me a job there before I was,
Right.
at MAC, and obviously. And I was like, one day I'm going to do Little Kim and Mary's makeup. And everyone's like, oh, shut up and wrap the meat. And I'm like, watch, you'll see. And it's crazy because many years later, I was, on a plane with Little Kim, and my friend said, do you remember when you said that? So.
And you were doing it.
And
You
I
know
was
what funny
doing
thing
it. It's
about The
crazy.
Secret, an interesting example of the way it can work. So my daughter is obsessed with mermaids. She's
I
8
love
years
mermaids.
old. I mean, she watches this show called H2O, Just Add Water on
Yeah.
Netflix. It's about these mermaids, and she loves Ariel the mermaid. Everything's mermaid, everything's mermaid. And she does mermaid spells on YouTube. You can look up on YouTube for a spell, how to turn yourself into a mermaid.
Oh my God,
So
this
she
is
sits all day,
great.
she writes them down, and she's reading these things like, I'm going to be a mermaid, and she's reading them and dipping her head in water. All this insanity. So she was doing it so much that I said, she always wanted us to buy her a mermaid tail. It's like $60. It's a real tail. You can actually swim in it.
Yeah.
So she kept asking us to get it. I said, okay, we're finally going to get you the tail. Like, leave me alone about the tail. So I order her the tail. She puts it on. She loves the little tail, that she's supposed to swim in. And then I stopped, and it occurred to me, I said, wait a minute. Like, here's this girl doing spells to become a mermaid, and she almost became a mermaid because all of a sudden she's got a mermaid tail.
That is so
That
cute.
I bought her for like $75. And I'm like, that's kind of like the secret. It's like she believed through these spells she was going to be a mermaid, and next thing you know, somebody buys her a mermaid tail for $75, and she's flipping around the house.
Yeah, flipping around the house.
In a real mermaid
to her
tail.
dad, yeah.
I was like, wow, that's kind of like the secret. So yeah, I actually believe in it, but my problem with the secret is always that it can be really hard to keep that focus to.
Yeah.
I understand it so well. Like, I could teach someone what it is, and and in essence, what is somebody explain in essence what is the secret? What are they trying to say for someone who hasn't read that book?
Well, I would say that just like write down your dreams and believe in them and not give up on it. It sounds corny, or visualize that you're going to be doing something and it will happen. For me, I was lucky. Like I was saying, when I started, I got my lucky break with Heather B., who I love dearly, and we call each other sisters to this day. But she is so crazy because she came in Christopher Street. That's when Mac was there, and I did a makeup on her cousin. I gave her my card. A year later, she calls me. My card fell out of her closet. She goes, I have a video shoot. She was KRS-One days, all this stuff.
Right,
I'm
right.
like, wow, this is so cool. She's like, are you available? And I'm like, okay, what day is it? 2 days from now? Sure. It took off from there. Then, Rod Digga saw the makeup I did with Heather B., then Little Mo, then, Vitamin. It just kind of like took off. And I think what made me stand out was I was very creative. I was bringing in, at a time, no disrespect to any other makeup artist, but I was doing the dewy, the clean, the fresh, the super dewy makeup, and on Claudette Ortiz. This is before the Beyoncés and the J-Los were around. This is the makeup that I was doing, very wet, very dewy, very fashion makeup. And the first time I worked on Eve was with Claudette's video, The City High, and Eve loved it. It was something different. I wasn't doing what most African American at that time were doing, the heavier contour and maybe the lighter foundation. I was putting more of an edge on it, which nothing is wrong with that. It's just my style was different. So I think that's what made me stand out. Also, I want to make clear, this is something, my pet peeve. I came from old school. When you did makeup, you had to be good, because there was no airbrushing then. There was none of this Instagram. There was none of this Facebook. There was none of this computer stuff. I hate to give my age away, but where you had to go in and touch up and fix somebody, and we didn't have that then.
Yeah, you just had to get it right while you were doing
what was in your book was your work. You understand? Like, that was my work. So I stand firmly by that, because
with your when you're talking about these techniques of makeup, it seems like before you used them at a job with a celebrity client, you were working at this look. It was your personal work, and were you doing this outside on the regular ladies or men and women and drag queens that would come into the shop?
Yes.
And then that work, that body of work, that vision, you were able to translate that to other clients because they saw what you were so good at, and they wanted it for themselves.
Yeah, I was lucky because with MAC Cosmetics, there's so many creative makeup artists and people that I was working with, and I was really, I learned so much from. I mean, I still learn today. We never stop growing and learning. But I really had the opportunity to work with some of the best makeup artists, super talented. So I was lucky to keep learning and growing, and that transformed over to the hip hop industry, and it was something different, and
and I think that's a really crucial point, is this idea, like in photography we call it vision, which is basically how you see whatever it is that's in front of you with that camera. When you see a scene of whatever, I don't know, someone begging on the street or whatever, how do you interpret that? Do you interpret that as, I don't know, that's a good thing because he can survive through the grace of other people? Do you look at it as a sad thing that society doesn't care? Are you angry at the government? Are you angry at him because he doesn't have a job? Whatever your take on that scene is, the way you shoot it is your vision. You shoot it a certain way to send that particular message. And it's the same thing like with you in the makeup. You had this vision of, well, maybe everybody else is making up these artists this particular way. I'm going to make them up a different way. And I know Misa, who I'm sure you know,
oh
stylist.
yeah, I love Misa. I've worked with her many times.
Right, and she's a stylist, and I don't profess to know styling that well, but I've heard her say in interviews that she was one of the first people who looked at these designer brands and started putting rappers in those outfits, like whatever the high-end brands would be. I don't know, maybe Louis Vuitton or something.
Yeah, and Misa kind of started that whole trend. I started around the same time with Misa. She's hired me, and I've worked on several videos with her.
Right.
And I have the utmost respect for her. She kind of started that whole trend. It's Fat Joe's wife, Lorena, Misa, myself, with the big fur, the little mini fur jackets. I had to go out and buy one with the little embroidered. Lorena's like, you have to get one. I'm like, okay.
Right.
But trying to keep up, you know.
Right.
But she kind of started that whole trend. Like Remy Ma would wear that.
Right.
With the high boots. So
Right.
when
She
I see
wasn't
that
following
style,
something. She wasn't
no,
just
no,
following.
that was Misa's own. Yeah, that's how
Right.
she dressed. So
Right.
people would look at her for fashion. That's how.
Right, and I think that's a crucial thing that that anyone trying to become successful really should understand. A lot of it is carving out your own vision, your own way that you think it should be done, the way you see it, and hopefully people will respond to that. If they don't respond, okay, maybe you're sending that vision to the wrong place. Maybe you need to take that makeup look to sports if it didn't work in music. But it's about matching your vision to what's going to connect with people, right? But if you're just following, well, then what do I need you for? I can just go get the next makeup artist. Because at the point where you say, let's do makeup in a dewy way or whatever the word is you refer to it, okay, well, once 35 other makeup artists can do it, then I can pick any one of those 35. They're all the same. If I want the originator, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to come to my Jacob of makeup.
Thank you. Like with Khalees, for instance, with Angie Martinez's video, this is something that stood out. Just one of the looks that I did was the lines in the lips. I don't know if you remember. She had the gold fronts, and I remember Diddy
never really
standing over me.
stuff like that.
I was like, my hand was like, I'm like drawing these little lines on. It was if I could go. I can't remember the name when Angie Martinez was rapping one of her videos, and
That
you
one
see
about if
Khalees
you say
with the
my name in
lines
Spanish,
yeah,
whatever.
and then she wipes her lips off. That was a look, and then also Fat Joe and I had got together and collaborated with Lean Back, and that was all body painting on the two girls, the Louis Vuitton.
Right.
So we were doing things, and Marla helped me on that. That was like we were doing things that kind of were different from the norm. So I think that's what made me stand out.
Tremendously important.
Yeah, and then what's important is that for our listeners, it's not about what your discipline is. It's about your vision and applying it to what you're doing. So we have JJ here, who's an incredible makeup artist, but she has that same mentality about doing the work, the personal work, so that she can realize her vision. And that applies to photographers, that applies to artists, that applies to manual labor, that applies to everything in life. Whatever you can visualize, the things you have to do is work to realize it.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think, and just really quick point about that visualization is, that is kind of important. You have to be able to imagine it on some level that this can work. And then hopefully you start taking the steps to make it work. But there does have to be this moment where you say, hey, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
And you run from there. But what I want you to do next, JJ, tell us what it's like when you are successful and it's working. I want you to paint this picture of all the good things about it. I want you to sell me on this job as if it is, be honest, but give me only the positive. Make this sound like the greatest job in the world. And just kind of walk me through those moments when you're saying to yourself, I have the greatest job in the world. Okay, just walk me through some of the experiences that you get as a makeup artist when it's working completely perfectly and you love it.
Okay, well, I would have to say the perks are definitely travel. You get to I've been to Africa twice. I've been blessed to go to the Philippines, to Australia, and all the places that I have been to thanks to this job. Those are the perks, definitely. And I got into the industry at the time when, Elektra Records, this is back in '97. I was been on many tours, and I had the opportunity that when hip hop first started, and it was crazy then. So I would definitely say for myself, I felt like a high when I was in another country, although there is a downside, which we'll get into later.
We're not talking about that right now.
And
just the good side.
And the good side is, the accomplishments for me would be to see my music video that I took part in. Of course, it takes a team, and also photo shoots. The highest thing for me was when I shot E for the Mac ad campaign, because I had started at Mac. So to do that, I was like, oh man, this is...
Right. You're sort of bringing her back to Mac, because she's probably familiar with Mac makeup because you're her makeup artist. You're putting the Mac on her face.
Yeah, that was the ultimate
Right.
high for me. And then, of course, before my dad passed, he got the chance to see me on Oprah with Hadiyah. We did the makeover thing with Ashanti on. So that was pretty
Right.
cool. So there's some great perks. You get to meet a lot of amazing people.
Right.
And
I always like the idea, if I know a celebrity and they're cool, to just to see them on TV and you're like, oh, I kind of know him and he's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Especially
that's
if you
pretty
connect
cool.
with their music. It's like, I was telling you when we were talking at the Hadiyah shoot how, like in my studio, a lot of times we'll play the song Baby from Ashanti.
Oh,
I
yeah, you
love
told
the
me
song.
that. I got to
Yeah.
tell Ashanti that too, by the
Yeah,
way.
tell her. Super sexy song, and for shooting like a girl, we'll play Baby. It's just in the playlist. Fantastic song. And when we shot Ashanti here, I'm like, oh my God, we got to play Baby. And I'm standing there shooting Ashanti to the song Baby that I've played in here 5,000 times. And here's the girl who sings the song.
And
like,
wrote, I mean, she's an incredible writer too.
so it's like that kind of stuff is so cool. So I'm sure for you it's like that. And you've probably been to a lot of things, like you've been to Summer Jam, you've been to the BET
Michael
Awards,
Jackson's
I'm
house
sure.
with Ashanti. That was awesome.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah,
Michael
that was
Jackson's
pretty
house.
cool, I have to say. That was pretty cool, yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's super cool. So anything else you can think of that's really, what about money-wise? When it's working, is the money coming in that's pretty
damn good. Money was pretty damn good in those days. And it's obviously, the industry is, not the same, but like Biggie said, more money, more problems.
Right.
And it's like the
Which we're not up
faster
to
I
that
got
yet.
it, the faster I spent it.
The more you spent it.
So it was good though. Those were some pretty good perks.
Right. Yeah, and it did change to some degree. I've said on the podcast before, I would shoot stuff for like Universal Motown Records, and like they'd fly me to like Atlanta for a music video, and then as they were booking everything, they'd go like, "At what time do you want the car to pick you up from your house?"
That was pretty cool too.
6:30. Now?
Yeah.
I haven't had a
Forget
car
it.
sent to pick me
Here's
up.
the subway pass.
Yeah, I pull out the Metro card. I go where I
Metro
gotta
card.
go. Yeah, nobody's sending cars to get me to the airport anymore.
Exactly. And bring your food with you too.
Yeah, right. So
You won't be getting craft service.
right. So that's a difference. And even in those days, the music videos, the craft service was amazing. You'd go to all this food.
Oh, my God.
And now you go, and the video is being shot by a guy with a 5D Mark II. And
Yeah, you were talking about
some
$1 million
candy
video
bars.
shoots back then with Hype Williams, or
Yeah.
and the sets were amazing, and the hotel, everything. And now they're probably under 50,000, and that's
Yeah, a lot
for
of it's even
everyone, and
less.
that's like 4 videos and one. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it shows the difference too that you see in a lot of people. I mean, not all.
Right.
I'm not saying all artists shoot for that price, but
Right. But the interesting thing, and this is kind of an aside, but everything has a good and a bad side. Like, say for me, in some ways, the proliferation of everybody shooting their own stuff, in some ways it hurts me. I've lost certain jobs because everyone's got an iPhone. But if I take myself out of the equation, I think it's beautiful that everybody is taking pictures. It's only where it affects my pocket that I care in a negative way. But if I just look at it from the outside, it's amazing that everybody gets to shoot. And if you look at music videos, it's like, for me, I don't get hired to take pictures at music videos as much as I used to. I used to make a lot of money photographing music videos, and it was a lot of fun. That work has virtually disappeared as videos have gotten cheaper. But if you take us out of the equation and really look at what happened with music videos, it's amazing. You have artists like Tyler, the Creator, Chief Keef. These guys are making their own videos, and it expresses their vision so much better than a video where like you'd have DMX in a shiny suit because that was popular at that time, and the video didn't fit DMX, and they're just spending all this money, and DMX is in like Cancun, and you're like, I don't associate DMX with Cancun. But when you see these guys who just tell their friend, like, let's shoot a video,
Exactly.
you're getting a video that's far more authentic to that artist because it's his vision. And it isn't a whole big production and lighting directors and all of that. It's just shooting the video wherever they are in their neighborhood. And I think that part of it is beautiful, even though
it's more real.
hurts my pocketbook.
Yeah, it hurts
so to
mine
speak.
too.
To speak.
As Ray knows too.
Yeah, I think
You're-
we've all had to change, and that's the key. Is that the business has changed, and our rates have suffered because of that.
Yes.
But we've had to find other work because that's how we have to afford all the bills that we've accumulated.
Yes.
Right. So let's get to the flip side for a moment.
Okay.
The flip side for a moment. So at the point where you are very successful at something, what are some of the negative sides that you get? What are some of the parts that kind of make you go, you know, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, or you just kind of get a little ticked or a little irked. Because the reason I point this out is only this reason. This is the only reason why. Because so many people want my job. So many people want your job. And I mean, and makeup in particular, it's funny because I tell people all the time when I see people coming into the end, first coming in, and they do makeup, I tell them right off the bat, if you can, switch to hair, because hair is in much more demand than makeup. You can get a better rate, you can make more money, you know, working on a salon on the side.
Yes,
and
that's
there's
so
just,
true.
And there's fewer hair people than makeup. The makeup artists are like, they're everywhere.
Everywhere. They're like ants now, cockroaches everywhere.
All over. Yeah, they're everywhere. So everyone wants your job.
Yeah.
They want your position. But what is the side of it that's a little negative that they might not be aware of if they were to become as successful as you are at this?
The negative side, I would definitely say, is even though the travel is amazing, sometimes you're away from your family on holidays, and you know, to maintain a relationship is almost impossible because you know, at that time, I mean, I was, not to drop names, but I mean, I was working with the top female, you know, hip hop artists at that time.
Can we stop one really quick second? I'm gonna cut you off really quick.
Okay.
Just name some of the top artists who you're like their go-to person, because I don't know if we actually did that. That they're like that you're the one.
Okay,
Boom.
well, at that time, you want me to talk about like at that time with the female rappers?
Yeah.
Well, just to give you like a little bit, at the time, that's what I was saying with Ray Understands, because I would always see Ray everywhere, see you everywhere. We worked together so many years. There was a time when I was like, had Little Kim during the Jump Off era, La Bella Mafia, I did all that, and then Ashanti just came out. I also had Eve. I
But
also
you've
had
had Ashanti
Baltimore.
from day one
and
to now,
Eve to
basically.
longer than, and then Fat Joe, I was working his groomer, and the whole Terrell Squad, Remy Ma. So, and then there was Lady, Miss Jade. Remember Miss Jade?
Yes,
and,
yes.
oh gosh, I can't remember. Little Mo 2. I mean, it
And
was
who did I see with
crazy.
BET the last time I saw you
To me-
BET? Do you remember who that was? I saw you about
Cassie?
6
I was
months ago.
Cassie.
Cassie, right? And
yeah,
Cassie's
Cassie,
another one.
Cassie.
Cassie's like so
And I mean,
fashionable.
she has other makeup. Everyone sometimes uses other makeup artists too, but my main people that I
but
always
those
was
people
working
that you
with
named,
at that time.
basically when you saw them, you saw you. And that's a cool thing with the makeup artist is that you can get really connected to them. Like, you know, like Rihanna would use Ursula for her hair, like every time, and Nicki Minaj would use Terrence for her hair all the time. Like, yeah, sometimes you can get that connection. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But I cut you off because I just wanted to kind of establish again some of the people you've been really connected to. But let's go back now.
Okay.
What is some of that downside when you're
Well, the
successful like
downside
that?
is you kind of ride the, kind of ride the whole high with them, and I think too, for me too, and Ray and I were talking about this earlier, like it's contagious. You know, you start being around these people and you're spending money like them. You're not. I'm the makeup artist, but like I'm living above my means, and I'm having to make a
they've got money to
certain
buy all
amount of
this
money,
stuff.
and I'm buying all these and just making really foolish mistakes and trying to keep up. You know, things that at this time in my life that I look back and I just think to myself, how crazy, like it's just absolutely crazy. And I think that, like I was saying, when you're traveling, you miss out on holidays, you miss out on family reunions. Looking back now, I miss those things, with my family, because you kind of lose yourself in the industry. And it's kind of like if someone doesn't call you back for a job, or it's kind of like hurtful sometimes after you've been with them for years.
Right,
I'm lucky because I've been one of the makeup artists that's been with like their clients for the longest time. But at the same time, sometimes you would do jobs and you can't be everywhere, so you're going to piss off some people sometimes. And then those people, you're like, wow, well, who did they use? And you find yourself looking like, who did they use?
Yeah, you don't want to be that person.
And you don't want to be that person.
And then you wonder, can they see the difference? You're like, am I crazy?
You don't want to be, you don't want to talk shit about it. It's a small industry. So then like, I just kind of like realized, like, is this really what's important
because I know
in life?
I get that as well. Something that I shoot all the time and someone else shoots it. And I'll be looking and going like, can they tell the difference? Do they really think that looks like what I would have done? And you don't know. Some people can tell. Some
you don't
people,
mean to be like that, and it's a horrible feeling that you have to be like that. So back then,
you're trying to check yourself and not be that person.
Exactly. But now I don't. I don't do that, and now there's so many makeup artists. So it's really it got to the point where it was like a tug of war. It's just. But I'm very confident with what I do, and I bring a lot to the table. So I didn't get too caught up in that world, but it is hard sometimes. What Ray was saying about the money or trying to pay your bills, it did drop substantially. So it was like
Right.
really hard at one point. Yeah.
But you're definitely not that person, because like you wouldn't be here if you were that person, because I wouldn't have considered you a friend and I wouldn't have invited you on.
yeah,
You're definitely
I'm
not that
person.
catty,
No,
insecure
not at all.
person.
Very confident with what I do.
Right,
Definitely.
and that's a beautiful thing. And that's
I make
why
mistakes
I can connect
still.
with you.
Sometimes
Yeah,
I look
we
at
all do.
videos, I'm like, okay, I could have did this better. I could have. Listen, I'm a Scorpio, and I'm
Right.
super. They used to call me, Misa would call me J Diddy, because I'm super anal. But you know what? I'm going to stay that way because I like to, my eye is my perfection. I want to make sure
Right.
with other people that when I work on them, it's just perfect.
Right.
Or, you know.
And I think that that's important, is that to really be honest with yourself, because we were talking about making mistakes, and at that time, early on, it was about chasing that check.
Yes.
It was about making as much money as possible and going out and, you know, trying to fly first. I mean,
Chows, towels.
Yeah, like, you know, falling
Yes.
out. That was important, and that was
So
the
silly.
mark of being successful. But if you would have told yourself, if I would have told myself that it wasn't successful, I wouldn't have believed myself. And what it takes is experience, and then when things change, being able to adapt, and then realizing, because you have a wealth of experience, that that stuff isn't as important anymore. I know that when I was with you in this heyday, I would be out at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning every night, and I wanted to be at the hottest event. Now I realize that I don't need to be out at 3 or 4 o'clock. I just can't sustain that. And I can still make the same amount of money or make less money, but I know how to spend it better, and I'm
Wiser.
happy.
Right,
Yes.
and Ray, assuming you remember this, right, and come a little closer to your mic too, Ray. When you were considering doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and do you remember I said to you, you need to look in the mirror and say, I am going to make less money this year so that I can do Jiu-Jitsu. You have to recognize you can't add something else to your life and keep everything that's in your life now. You must say to yourself, I am willing to make less money because I think there's a value in Jiu-Jitsu, and now you're doing Jiu-Jitsu and you do yoga very often as well, but again, that's taking money away from you, but I'm assuming you're valuing what you're getting from your Jiu-Jitsu training and your yoga training more than just making another couple of thousand at the end of the month.
Yeah, I mean, very much so, because I'm healthier. And I know that being healthy will make me happier and will make me operate at a higher level and be more creative. So I'm investing in myself. I'm not making as much money, but I'm richer because of my experience.
Right, agreed. Now, while we're still on this subject
100%.
about some of the negative side, so did you ever get the situation, and this has to be a yes,
Okay.
where because you're, and the thing that's interesting too is, say if you're a photographer and you shoot an artist pretty often, you're still only getting like 2 hours with them or whatever, you shoot them, and you kind of, very often you're trying to stay out of the way. Like I've been on music video sets where like I've been there for 2 days and I'm shooting this guy 10 or 12 hours at the video, but I'm basically trying to stay out of the way and let things happen and photograph it. When you're in makeup, it's very different. It's like you and that artist for like an hour. You know, you're alone and you're talking and, you know, you're seeing them very unguarded. I'm sure you're hearing a lot of phone conversations that are private, and, you know, you're just with them on a very personal level and working with them day after day, like you said, on a tour year after year. How often does it cross the line where, like, I remember one publicist telling me that Raekwon called her and he's like, yeah, my car got towed, I need you to do whatever. And she's like, I'm the publicist. My job's supposed to be like get your record on a chart, not to go deal with your car getting towed.
Yeah.
But how often did you end up with situations like that where you're getting phone calls about things that just, you know, are kind of beyond, like, hey, I do your makeup, that's not my issue.
Well, I wanted to say something really quick. Just to clarify something about, it's okay to go to Chows and Towels, but I'm just saying, for me, that's not my thing. More like I don't need to be there every week. So, but there's nothing wrong with it. If
No, of
people wanna
course,
go.
yeah. It's just
So I want
it's
to clarify
the
that.
balance, though. It's with everything. It's the balance of
the balance.
You know, we all like working. We all like spending money. You know, I've got cameras that cost me $8,000-9,000. I don't think everyone should do that. It's just certain times and places. And I think with everything, it's about the balance. That's the number one thing.
Balance.
You should not work so much that you don't have free time. And like I said, Ray goes to yoga sometimes 3 days a week. Sometimes he'll do jiu-jitsu 3 days a week.
That's amazing.
Right, but he also shouldn't spend all day every day sitting at yoga and jiu-jitsu. He should get off his ass and work. So it's everything, you know, but then if he works all the time, he needs to stop working and go enjoy himself. It's all about the balance.
The balance.
Number one.
I'm so there with you, Ray. I'm so there, but I'm more into, well, we'll go back to the question. So the question is, yes, it's happened several times, and some of those people, I mean, it would be crazy. Sometimes I would get calls at like 1, 2, 3 in the morning, you know, and I just thought to myself, this is crazy. Like, I have a life too.
Right, and you're like,
you know?
I do your makeup. Like,
yeah, or I would someone would get mad if I'm not you know, I was just like, it got to the point where it was tug of war, and it's not a healthy lifestyle for me. It's not, you know, I just got to the point where it just put so much pressure on me. And like Ray said, I wanted to be happy. I wanted to find happiness, and I had taken some time off for a while. And I had started a company, so I have other artists that work for me, and
I've seen
I sent them
makeup
out.
artists that are
Jaden
under
is one,
you.
Jaden and well, I like to think of them as some people say assistants, but they're like my right hand. You know, they're there for me to hold me down. They're very trustworthy. Khadijah is obviously the main person that's been with me the longest, and she's amazing, and Jaden and I'm like I said, I'm very confident. So the people that do work for me are amazing at what they do, but I took some time off because I wanted to just clear my head and have that passion back for what, it's not that I lost it, it's just what was more important. And if I'm not happy with myself and loving me, I can't give that energy. Like, you know, now with the creativity, like Ashanti told me the other day, she's like, my JJ's back, you know, because
that's cool.
That creativeness is just, I'm full force right now. I'm full force. And I mean, for, you know, like we were talking about our company, the company we want to start doing the classes, everything like that. I'm not saying full force I don't want to go on tours and do all that stuff and go crazy.
Here and there.
You know, there's certain people I'll work with and I'll do those things, but I'm not trying to go out there and get more celebrity clients. That's not where I'm at in my life right now. I want to give it to the public and to other people. When people were like that with me, I shut it down because I'm not a yes person, and I think that's what a lot of artists do like about me. Everyone knows that about me. You either like me or you don't, but I'm not a yes person by any means. And when people did treat me like that, I stepped aside. I said, whoa, you know what, I'm a human being too, and I just wouldn't be available. I wouldn't be available.
Be willing to turn
I don't care
it down.
who you are. I wouldn't be available. There's been some occasions where I wasn't treated you know, now looking back, I would probably have handled things different, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, I learned a lot from it, and there's some artists that I've worked with that I was just like, I will never go back. Like, you could pay me freaking $50,000 and I wouldn't go back to work with you again.
So, and the funny thing too is about artists, it's weird because we tend to think of successful people for some reason as being like smart and having everything together. And we kind of forget that not only are they regular people, oftentimes they're just as crazy as your crazy friend.
We're humans.
And then when you see a guy like a Tom Cruise that say he's so protected by publicists and whatever, and then when he gets away from that for a minute, all of a sudden he's jumping on Oprah Winfrey's couch, and you go, wow, this guy's as big a jerk as my best friend. He's not some genius. He's just an actor. And the same thing with these artists. It's like, you know, the regular 18-year-old girl who's a fan of, you know, Rihanna or whatever, her vision is like, oh, she's got it so together, and she's so confident and so strong, and she's so pretty. And then when you know her, you're like, oh my God, this girl is just as insecure as everyone else. Wow, she's just as...
If not more, but I'm not saying Rihanna, but if not more, sometimes artists are, because it is a tough lifestyle, and you got to read all this negative stuff about you. Your whole life is, you know, in view of everyone. It's
and there's always a new artist coming out. So if you're Mary J. Blige, and then all of a sudden they're talking about Keisha Cole, maybe you're thinking, oh my God, it's my time. Ride. And then 3 years later, Keisha Cole's looking at whoever, 7th Streeter or whoever the next one would be, or K. Michelle, whatever. And, you know, it's like, so, yeah, they're the same as regular people. So when you're dealing with them, it's the same as when you're dealing with that friend, and you're like, why does this friend call me 11 o'clock? Or why does my friend, you know, borrow this and not bring it back? It's just you're dealing with the celebrity. And
it's the same thing with makeup, same thing with photography, same thing with the whole industry. It's like a roller coaster ride, and I decided to get off that roller coaster ride many years ago. And I lost a lot of money with it. Who cares? I'm okay. Like, I sold the Mercedes truck, and I ride a bike now, a really cool bike. Like, it's like lit up, and I've never been happier. And I stop and I smell the flowers, and I take time to eat healthy. I watch what I put into my body. I'm right where both of you are. Like,
That's
I'm
very
right
good.
here. Like,
Right.
I can honestly say that I've never been happier. I'm not the richest, but who cares? You know what? There's more to life. There's more. I want to go camping. I want to go
Right.
fishing. I want to.
Hook you up with my friend who keeps wanting me to go camping, and I'm like, dude, we're not going camping. Like, I'm not going camping. I'm gonna hook you up with him. And my friend Alex, he can take you camping.
And if I could do those things, guess what? It makes me a better makeup artist when I'm with Ashanti.
Oh, of course.
It makes me
Right.
more creative. It makes
Right.
me happier. Or when I'm with, whoever that it is that my hands are magic, so I feel like I bless people's face when I touch them. So whoever I'm blessing at that time, I can create magic when I'm happy, like you were saying.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's about recharging. It's about when you feel spent, you have to step away and you have to find out what's gonna make you happy. Because once you're happy, then the magic happens. Because then you can translate your well-being and your purpose and your joy into the things that you do, and it touches other people. So like you're preaching to the choir, because
Yes.
it's all about just investing in yourself so that you can be the best at what you
But
do.
it's funny for me because I hear a lot of people talk about stuff like that, but I've somehow never reached that point where I felt sort of, say, burnt out, or I wanted to step away from it. I've seen a lot of people in every field, actors, musicians, athletes, and somehow I've never reached that point where I felt like, oh, I just want to get away from this. I'll get it like on a daily, like I'll be at a shoot on Tuesday and I'm like, my God, I just want to go home and get out of here.
Yeah.
But somehow I've never gotten to that point for some reason where I wanted to step away for like a month or 2 weeks, and it would probably help me, but I've never felt it and never actually done it.
Well, your wife too seems from the show very supportive, so that kind of
I'm
helps.
very lucky with her,
a lot of
yeah,
men, they don't
yeah.
understand when I got to get on the plane for Christmas and
Right.
holidays or Thanksgiving. They're not cool with that.
Right.
They want me there, so it's like
Right.
it's difficult. It's a difficult life. So if you can find a
Yeah.
partner that is accepting of all those things and you're grounded, that does help too. So maybe
I've been very fortunate, with that situation, that my wife is extremely supportive in that area. And it's funny because I've actually tried to talk her, and she works as a speech therapist for the Board of Ed.
Oh,
so she
wow.
has a rather traditional 9 to 5. And I've tried to actually encourage her to quit for a year and pursue something else, just as like a creative mind exercise, but she's never wanted to do it. So it may not be for everybody, I guess.
Yeah.
But I always just say to her, go give it a try. Just go find out where it takes you. You might develop some other business or something, but she doesn't want to do it.
well, you're lucky to have a partner like that.
I'm lucky, yeah.
She's lucky too, but
Yeah,
you're
somebody who always has a check coming in. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's this thing called TED Talks, which is very informative, and they talk about sabbaticals. They talk about taking a time away from what you're currently doing, so that you can reassess if it's the best that you can be. So there's even a study where there's a methodology where you're taking every 7 years, you take a year off, and when you come back, you're that much better, so that everything gets better, the money gets better, because you're creating better work, and your rates, you can charge better rates. So it's certainly something to consider, and I'm sure that there's other things that you can do to get or to work on your A game.
Right.
We're working on that right now.
Yeah,
We've
it
got
seems
great.
like it.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Right. Right. So I know we have something special coming up soon on a podcast. I think it's kind of interesting. I think I'm going to have my brother come on.
Okay.
Because a lot of times I'll mention articles. I'll be like, yeah, I saw this article. And like 90% of them come from my brother. He finds all these links and he sends them to me, and I read them and talk about them on a podcast like I found them. And it's not me. But we're going to do a day where we've read 3 specific books, but I kind of wanted to name them in case people who listen to the podcast want to read them.
Okay.
So then when we do this book discussion, they can kind of join in the conversation. So, and if I get the titles a little bit wrong, I'm sorry, but if you go to Google, you're going to find it anyway, okay? So just, so people will know, okay? So one of them is called How to Fail at Almost Anything and Still Succeed by Scott Adams. He's the guy who did the Dilbert cartoon, okay? So how to succeed at almost anything, and how to fail at almost anything and still succeed. The second book is something called Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath. And the third book is the new Malcolm Gladwell book called David and Goliath. All right, so I'm hoping some people who listen to this are going to go out and read these books. So when we talk about them kind of specifically, we can they can kind of be on the same page and see what they get from them. I didn't read the Malcolm Gladwell book yet, but I've read the other two, and I thought there was a lot of interesting points.
Like what?
Well, let me not go into those maybe, but
Okay.
I would say the most interesting point that I've come across recently is this. Okay, so this is fascinating. There's an entire community of pickup artists. Okay, there's a book called The Game, and it kind of tells a story of this one guy who just never was horrible at women. A guy named Neil Strauss, horrible at women to the degree that he's a writer. He's written a lot of famous books, biographies of like music people, like cool biographies, you know, like Motley Crue biography, things like that. So he goes on tour with Motley Crue. You know, and he wants to gig because he's like, I'm getting chicks. It's Motley Crue. I'm on tour with Motley Crue for the tour. You know, he says the only person who kissed him on the whole tour was Tommy Lee.
Wow.
You know, so this is how bad he was with women. But within a year or so of learning certain techniques, he was teaching seminars to guys for thousands of dollars on how to pick up women.
Oh yeah, I heard about it. I read Vince Neil's book, by the way.
Yeah,
I didn't realize
I
he was
read that.
Mexican
Tattoos
too.
and
I was
Tequila.
like, yeah,
I didn't remember
love that. I love
but
that.
yeah, I read that, and I read The Dirt, which was the Motley Crue book.
Yeah.
But you know, so one of the things that taught me was that anyone can learn anything, which is an interesting topic, because a lot of times people think like, oh, I suck at this or I suck at that. Well, you put in the work, camera work, put in the work, you could become good at almost anything. But one of the interesting things was when you study what these guys who practice the game, the way they're trying to pick up women, when I read it, I saw all of these things that applied in terms of trying to pick up clients that matched the philosophies of what the guys do who are trying to pick up women.
Wow.
So you had this whole community of people, I'm going to call them the game. In my mind, they were like the pioneers of this type of philosophy. So in a few years that passed after that, some other guys came and sort of like, I don't know if the word would be improved upon it, but they kind of added something new to it, okay? So if you look on YouTube under RSD, Real Social Dynamics, it's like this company that sells these seminars on how to pick up women. And they took a kind of different approach than the game, because the game had this kind of step-by-step approach. Like, well, first you come in and you have an interesting opener, and then after that you make a joke, and then you show they have these little steps. But the RSD guys took a more cut to the chase approach, where they were just walking up like, who are you? We need to talk. Very direct. But
Very
when you,
East Coast.
yeah, I guess so. Very bold. They're New York, you know.
Yeah.
But when you start to understand their philosophy, it really starts to make a lot of sense about what they're doing. So one of the recent videos I saw from them was on the topic of congruence, which I personally found fascinating. And I'll explain it. Hope I don't bore anybody to
No, you're
death
not
with this.
boring.
Okay, so the concept of congruence means that your words, your thoughts, and your deeds are all in line. And very often we don't have this because we have these insecurities that kills that. So you could get hired for a job. Okay, let's say they hire you. You're going to be the makeup artist on, who would be a big, Nicki Minaj would be a big artist at the moment. So
Can we
you go,
say somebody else?
okay. let's make up an
That's
artist.
a great
then.
experience. Let's go.
So we're making up a new artist. Okay,
Okay.
her name is Princess, because I don't know any artist named Princess. okay?
Mermaid for your daughter.
Mermaid. There you
Mermaid.
go.
Okay.
Millie the
Thank you.
Mermaid.
Thank you.
She's the top artist. You get hired for that.
Okay.
So you are hired as the makeup artist for her. So in terms of your deeds, what you're doing, you're there purposely. It's not like you snuck into the video and you're pretending to be the makeup artist. You are the makeup artist. But because it's such a big artist and such a big video, you're inwardly nervous. You're inwardly afraid. Okay? And let's say you learn how to talk a good game, though. You cover it up with your words. You cover it up. You're like, yeah, you know, I just shot these, I just did the makeup on these other girls. I'm going to make you look great. Your words are on point. Still, what happens is in the course of that day, it just kind of falls apart. The whole day doesn't work the way it should. And when you're trying to figure out why, it's because you don't have what we call congruence, which means your words, thoughts, and deeds are not truly aligned. Your deeds are aligned because you are the makeup artist there. Your words are aligned because you're saying all the right things, but mentally, you're not really feeling it. You understand? So
Definitely.
this concept, and it's something that we ignore a lot, okay, that we ignore that. And it's when we can find that, things can work much better for us. And that's what these guys would say is attracting girls to guys, and what can attract a client to you. Losing the insecurity, having these things in line properly and not being fake in any way. And I'll give you just one other example, okay? So imagine the rock star walks into the room, okay, and all the girls fall for him. The first thing we think is, well, they're gold diggers, right? They only like him because he's a rock star. That's why. People who kind of believe in this philosophy, these pickup artists, would suggest that what they're attracted to is not the fact that this guy sold 50 million records. It's not that. It's that he walks in the room as if he has sold 50 million records. Because he has that swag when he walks in. That is what she is attracted to.
That confidence.
That confidence. But so often we don't have that. And this is why it's interesting when you think about it. Sometimes you'll see a girl say, oh, when I met him, I didn't even know who he was. I didn't even know he was famous. And we always go, bullshit. Might be true if you're thinking about this, because this person has this congruence. He has his words, thoughts, and deeds. He walks in a room like he sold 50 million records. He did sell 50 million records. He acts like it, and he puts that across. And very often, I think for all of us, though, because, like I said, people looking at you, JJ, like, oh my God, like, look at this. This is the most, I said, you are the most successful makeup artist that I know. And I've been in this business 20 years.
Thank you.
You are the most successful
more,
makeup.
But thank you, I'll take that.
In terms of who I know,
I worked hard, I paid my dues.
You know, and like I said, it's not like I read about you. I've been at stuff. I know who you work with, and I've watched you work. We've worked together here. We've worked together on music video sets. But we all have this like little bits of insecurity. And very often, like, you're not walking around like, I'm the best makeup artist. You know, you're walking around like, hey, I'm grateful to have some work and I'm happy to be here. But it's just sometimes all those things aren't aligned and things don't work as good as they could for us. But I think the more we can find that, the more we can find an alignment with our words, thoughts, and deeds, and banish the insecure thoughts and the negative thoughts and the fear, the more likely things are to work properly for us.
So you are like Ray and I then. You have went through this. This is helping. This is the way you kind of deal with this more so. We're dealing with it with yoga, with work.
Right.
You're dealing with it with, which I'm a book nerd too, by the way.
Right.
I know people think I'm wild and but I'm really a nerd.
Right.
So I read a lot of books as well, but that's a great, like I have to read that and it's a great analogy.
Right.
Definitely. But
and I think one of the reasons we don't have it is that, see, we set a certain bar for ourselves that other people aren't setting. In other words, it kind of works like this. It's like in our minds, put it this way, to have congruence, what we'd want to have is we'd want to be successful, and then we would want to walk around and talk as if we were successful, and inside we want to feel successful. Does this make sense so far?
Yes.
And now if we could project this, like with The Secret, people would become attracted to us and want to work with us. All good so far. But the problem is, how often do we feel successful? A lot of times we don't, because there's so many levels to it. Because the girl who, I shouldn't say girl, sounds degrading, but the person who's looking to get a job as a makeup artist, she looks at you and you're doing a Little Kim video shoot in Miami for 2 days or something, let's say 10 years ago when videos were flying, people out there, whatever. She's looking at you like, oh my God, JJ's so successful, I wish I could be her. But it's very possible JJ is looking past this job at the next job going, wow, I wish I could do whatever the next thing would be. I don't know, Angelina Jolie for some movie. So inwardly, you might not feel successful. Your actions say you're successful. You're at the video. And the things you say to people indicate you're successful. But inside, you might not feel successful because there's another level you're trying to get to. So it's like the more sometimes that we can get away from measuring it and not measure it. Meaning for me, instead of going, well, I'm successful because I've had a studio or I've kept my, just whatever, I just know I'm successful. I don't need to qualify it. I don't need a reason. There's always someone above you. There's always someone below you.
Yes.
So dropping the qualifying of it and just believing whatever it is that you're trying to put across, I am successful, or I'm good at what I do, or I care about what I do, whatever. Trying to get those things in line, the words, thoughts, and the deeds, the more you can get those in line, the more things will be attracted to you that you can benefit from, rather than, again, being out of congruence where you mentally you're going, oh, I'm not that successful because somebody else has got a better job than me. And then you're lacking in congruence. It's not all connected properly. And I think that's a problem. But that's the most interesting point that I personally have come across in the last couple of weeks. And again, if you ever care about this stuff, You go on YouTube for RSD.
Send it to me.
I'll send
Yeah,
you a
send
link.
it to
Yeah,
me.
RSD, Real Social Dynamics, and you watch their videos, and they're just talking about picking up girls. But to me, I look at it and I see all these parallels in my career, and I'm like, wow, like these guys have a real understanding of like what they're calling real social dynamics. And you're trying to understand, well, why is it that I'm a big successful makeup artist and people aren't treating me a certain way? Because maybe you're not in alignment. Maybe you're at that video and you are the head makeup artist, but maybe mentally you're kind of going, and that's what's crippling you.
Yeah.
So, and I don't mean you, of course. I'm just talking that
in general,
generic
you mean.
I'm just talking to you.
I mean, I get that, but I think that we were talking about it earlier. I think that it's about simplifying things. I don't call it congruence, but I understand that it's not about keeping up with the Joneses. It's not about qualifying it. It's about being confident that the stuff that you're doing is right for yourself, and that there's other things that you need to do so that you can achieve more.
Exactly.
And achieving more because you want to, not because somebody else, because you'll try to impress someone else.
And I think we all, when we first got into this industry, it was about how high can we go with how successful can we be. It was all about, like you said, chasing that dollar, go in here, go and get the passport stamped, and how success, constant in your head. You wanted the next level. It's crazy. So for me now, I kind of like have a life outside of all that. I don't think about it as much, and I think I put my best work forward. I think what made me stand out is I was more or less, for makeup art, more of a trendsetter with the looks that I created. That kind of stood me out, but different from other makeup artists. And now, like we said, there's like a million. I would just say too, to those people trying to get in the career, like not to be, to remember to stay humble. Don't put all your eggs into one basket.
Right.
Because there's no, how do I call it? There's no makeup artist union for freelancers. There is a union for the movie sets and all that. So don't put all your eggs into one basket. Try to venture out and do other things
of course,
as well.
If you're connected to just one artist and they drop you, that might be over.
Exactly. I've learned that. So you just have to really, and don't be a snake. Like, and if you think artists are going to get you clients, that they're most likely not. So maybe it's going to be that other makeup artist that I've gotten, other people jobs, or the publicist, or people, the photographers.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. You'd be surprised, but you aligning yourself with other makeup artists can definitely benefit you. Those people are not your enemy.
They're not your enemy.
They don't have to be your friends, but they're not your enemy.
No,
they're not.
They're not. And I can't stand when people are like that. And I guess from training, which is my passion, which I want to really get back into, as you and I were talking, we have some great ideas and classes coming up. But that's just my passion, and I did that prior. And I love to teach people. I get a high off that, a natural high. Of teaching
I have that
and
same
learning
thing. And for me, the thing with teaching is, I don't know how many people are aware of it, but I taught high school for 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, 11
I didn't know that.
years. Yeah, New York City Board of Ed, what they call Department of Education.
Oh yeah, I heard
now.
your wife the clip that you sent me.
Right. So I mean, I taught. So I have an actual education background. So every now and then I'll see something being taught how I judge it to be wrong, which is an unfair judgment, but whatever. I'm looking at it like, this could be taught better. This could be taught in a way that people can understand it better. You're just making this sound needlessly complicated, so we think you're smart, but this could be broken down to be much simpler than you're making it out to be. And that's usually what makes me want to teach, because I know I can do it better than when I'm watching someone else teach, okay? But the last thing I think I would say is, on that same kind of topic of what you're saying and on this congruence type thing, is I think the key is sort of to not be measuring your success, I think is the way to say it.
Yeah, don't measure it.
Because you will, this is what the Scott Adams book talks about a bit, and I don't want to get into it much until we do that episode.
There's more to life than measuring
your
success.
But you're always going to fail, because like I said, if you really sat and thought about it, like as music artists or actors, like who really genuinely feels successful? Because all of them are looking either at the next person coming up, or they're looking at who's above them. So you don't want to measure it that way, because you'll always feel not successful. Like I said, there's someone looking at me saying, John Ricard is successful because he's maintained a studio in New York City for almost 10 years now. And then I'm looking at it going, I'm not successful because I want A, B, C, D. And if mentally, internally I'm projecting I am not successful, then I will not be successful. So you have to sort of stop measuring it and just kind of live in that moment and be in the moment and just enjoy it. You're working a video, or you're working the Hadiya shoot you and I did, or you're working that makeup photography class you and I are going to put together in early January.
I can't wait.
It's going to be hot.
2014 is going to be awesome.
That's it. But whatever it is, you just attack it with the same passion, the same love, the same enthusiasm, and that's all there is to it, but not measuring how successful you are, because you will always feel not successful. And then no matter what you do, no matter what you say, you will be out of congruence, you'll be out of alignment, and it's not going to work.
And
So I think
everyone
that's what
has
I'm
their,
trying to say.
exactly,
Okay?
and everyone has their time to shine.
Yes.
I've seen them come and go,
Oh,
come
please,
and
yeah.
go.
Sometimes a
So
little
it's
too
like
quickly. Right.
you gotta stay humble.
Right, sounds good. All right, so we're going to wrap here. So if you want to find me, the best place really is Instagram. I am John Ricard on Instagram, JohnRicard, and you see some of my real work, some pictures of my daughter, and all those other fun things. Where do we find you, Miss JJ?
Where do you find me? I don't want to be found. I'm
She's
the only
hiding.
one without Twitter. But you and Hadiya forced me and Ashanti to open
Yeah.
my Instagram back up.
Yeah, we put you
and
back on
what is my
Instagram.
Instagram name?
It
JJ
was like-
Makeup Artist.
I think it's JJ Makeup Artist. yeah.
JJ, and I'm gonna have a fabulous crown on with blonde hair, so you probably won't recognize me.
Right. Usually she has
From
black
Hadiya.
hair.
Yeah, I
Okay.
have my own hair. So you can find me there on Facebook as well, JJ Grant. And
Sounds good. And Ray Tamarra, where do we find you?
You can find me at raytamarra.com, or you can see what I'm shooting at gettyimages.com and just type in my name,
I love Getty.
RayTamarra.
Yeah, they sell pictures. All right, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. JJ, that was so much fun.
I had a
Thank
great
you.
time.
You're going to
Thank
be
you
back.
for
JJ's going
having
to be
me.
back in
I'm gonna
like
be
3 more
back.
episodes, and we're going to talk about stuff and on and on and on, guys. All right, thanks a lot for tuning in.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Ray and John. Thank you. Yes, great show. That was awesome.
That was fun. That was one of our